And welcome, everyone. My name is Rabbi Levine. I am a friend of the family, of the Samson family, and I run an organization called Brothers for Life. It's an organization that helps injured Israeli combat soldiers reclaim their lives after injury. It's really a remarkable organization. And we're really learning this Mishna Nishmas in the loving memory of Mr. Eric Samson Azriel ben David, who I have the zechut to know personally as just a remarkable global leader of the Jewish people, and this should be a zechut for his neshama that we're learning Torah in his merit. So, one of my favorite Mishnas, I didn't even bring it up in front of me, which I will do now. I'll do it by heart. I hope I do it right. This is before I start, let me say this. Pirkei Avot, as many of you on this call would probably know, is Ethics of Our Fathers, and it was written over 2,000 years ago, written down, okay? These teachings were by the Tanaim. They were by this group of rabbis who wrote the Mishnah, or part of the Mishnah. And what's really interesting to me about Pirkei Avot, which is these ethics, is there are 6 chapters, I think it's columns of the Mishnah, okay? There's agricultural law, there's all the laws about marriage and divorce and relationships, there's laws of civil law, which would be like tort law and real estate, there's laws about the holidays, and then finally, there's laws of spiritual purity and impurity. And those are the 6 divisions of these different laws. And based on that is all the Talmud. Okay, this is the Mishnah. And the rabbis decided to take one small book, let's call it our book, the Pirkei Avot, which is the teachings of our fathers, and they chose which one of these 6 areas to put this book in. Like, in other words, if you're going to put ethics in one of these 6 columns, agricultural law, holidays, laws between men and women, civil law, the holidays, laws of spiritual purity and impurity, where would you put it? And just think about that for a second. If you were deciding as this group where to put the teachings of ethics, where would you put the teachings of ethics? And interestingly, they decided to put Pirkei Avot in the column of civil law, real estate, damages, all the things that of business. Okay, why? Well, the answer is that it says in the Gemara, it says if you want to know who someone really is, look at 3 things: kiso, kaso, koso. Look at kiso, kaso, and koso. What are those 3 things? Kiso, look at their pocketbook. Kaso, look at what are they like when they're angry. And koso, what are they like when they drink? If you want to know who a person really is, check their pocketbook. What does that mean? Check whether they're like when they're angry and when they drink. So check their pocketbook is, take a look at their checkbook. What do they spend their money on? If you want to know who a person really is, because no one really sees that but them, right? What do they spend their money on? Is it all about them? Are they generous? Are they stingy? What are they like when they are having a financial issue with someone? What are they like with their taxes? Okay. Kaso is when they're angry. What's their ability to go above that anger and not just give into it? And of course, when they're drunk, when their defenses are down, what are they like? This will tell you the measure of a person. So this is why Pirkei Avot is in civil law, because of kiso, because what are they like with their pocketbook? In other words, it's easy to be polite and nice to people, but when someone's claiming against you something that you really don't owe, how do you behave? And this is why Pirkei Avot is in the world of human interaction as it comes to money and business and damages, that kind of thing. And that's why Pirkei Avot is there, because that's the real measure, okay? So this second Mishnah says, Shimon HaTzadik Me'Shorshi made it the Grand Assembly. The Shimon Tzaddik was the last of the men of the Grand Assembly, the Anshe Knesset Gola. Vuhaya Omer Shlosha Devarim, and he said three things. Al Shlosha Devarim Olam Omed. On three things of the world stand. Al Torah, Al Avodah, V'Gemilat Chasadim. On three things the world stands. On Torah, on service, and on acts of loving kindness. So question number one, and you guys can participate if you want to. What does it mean that the world stands? And I want to tell you guys something. The language of the Mishnah is incredibly precise. What does it mean the world stands on these three things? And second question is, what do these three things represent, and what's the relationship to each other? So number one, if the world stands, it means that these literally are the essential experience of being a human being on this world. These three things. They are the essence of it all. So what is Torah? What does Torah mean? Torah comes from the word hora'ah, which means to teach or to learn. So Torah in this context represents self-learning, self-development, self-improvement. Torah Chaim are instructions for living. Okay? So Torah is self-development, self-learning. Avodah refers to service in the temple, which is actually later became prayer, is our relationship to God. So number one is self-learning. Number two is relationship to God, referenced by prayer. We actually speak to God. It's the only time we actually speak to God is in prayer. And three is Gemilat Chasidim, which is incorrectly translated as acts of loving kindness. We'll get into that in a second, okay? Now think about this for a second. There's self-learning, there's our relationship to God, and there's acts of loving kindness. What's the common denominator of these three things on which the entire world stands? What's the common denominator? The common denominator on which the entire world stands is one word: relationships. This world and this plane, when we're here for our 120 years, it's about singularly relationships. Number one, your relationship to yourself. Number two, your relationship to God. And number three, your relationship to others. The Mishnah is telling us there are three aspects to your life: your relationship to yourself, your relationship to God, and your relationship to others. And I want you to think of a triangle, okay? I want you to think of a triangle. This triangle is all of life for all of humanity forever. And I want to explain exactly how this means and why self comes first, then God, then people, and where you're supposed to be standing in all this. So number one, what is your relationship to be yourself meant to be? A constant state of learning, of growth. We all know when we feel stagnant, we're not happy. We want to be different than we were a year ago. We want to be more of ourselves. So Torah is that which allows us to blossom from within. And it is all about your self-learning. And I want to say something. The Mishnah is teaching us something incredibly important. You can't have the other two if you don't have the first one. It starts not with Torah, with God, your relationships. The Mishnah is telling us, no, it doesn't start there. It starts with yourself. How do you relate to yourself? Are you expressing who you are? The Torah is supposed to teach us how to bring our gifts and skills to ourselves. Is that happening? That's where it starts. If you don't know yourself and if you aren't growing from within, you can't really have a relationship with God or others. That's the first relationship. It's relationship with yourself. And you can see this sometimes. If a person is hides from themselves, or they don't go there, or they're not into self-learning, you'll see that they're really underdeveloped. You ever heard about the person who runs over the pedestrian on the way to deliver food? In other words, they want to do chesed, but they haven't developed themselves, so their midot aren't developed, right? So your first relationship is a relationship with yourself. Only then can you have a relationship with God. And a relationship with God is called service, where we're coming into contact. And the rabbis say prayer, the relationship with God is, you're talking to God. It's an intimate relationship. It's incredibly personal. And I love it because it's like, you just talk to God. We have a formulaic way of doing that, but there's also time for you to talk very personally to God. And that's the second pillar. The second thing is relationship to God, okay? The third part of the triangle, and only then can you go to others, is relationship to others. And relationship to others is called gemilut chasidim. Chesed, we know, means giving. What does gemilut mean? It's translated loosely as loving kindness, but that's not what it means. The word gemilut comes from the word gemel. This is the part where you can talk if you want to. Does anyone know what a gemel is in Hebrew? A gemel is a camel. I don't know if you guys know, you're on mute, but a gemel is a camel. What does a camel have to do with giving? What is a camel? A camel is something that can drink water, keep it in its hump, and take it for a long, long time. It's a very independent animal, okay? The gamel means to make independent. Abraham made a party on the third year of Isaac's birth, of Yitzchak's birth, B'yom she gamel et Yitzchak, the day that he became, so to speak, independent. So Gemilut Chasidim means chesed that lasts, chesed that makes an impact, chesed that allows another person to be independent. It's kind of like the menorah. There's one candle that stands above all the other candles in the menorah. It's called the shamash. And that shamash it's called the servant. Why is it called the servant? Because it lights up the other candles. But the moment the other candles can burn, you take this candle away because they can burn by themselves. So that's why the Rambam says the highest level of tzedakah is giving a person a job, because this is the chesed that makes them independent. The highest level of tzedakah is helping a person to stand on their own 2 feet. So the world stands on gemilut chasidim. The Mishna is teaching us. It stands on the kind of acts that allow this person to be independent, this kind of act that lasts, okay? So now, come back to our triangle for a second. The world stands on three things. The world stands on 3 relationships. There's a triangle, a relationship to self, relationship to God, and others. And you're meant to be in the middle of the triangle, equidistant from all points. Meaning the balanced person is the person who has a relationship with their self, with God, and with others in a way that they're giving. They're growing, they have a relationship with God, and they're giving to others. They're equidistant. Too far to one side, the person who's too far to God, so to speak, where they only pray and daven and they don't give to others and they don't know themselves, they're out of balance in their relationships. The person who's only giving to others and doesn't know themselves, it's wonderful, but they're out of balance. The person who's only into their own self-growth can be a little narcissistic. So you think about your life for a second. I mean, the mission is not just giving us advice. Think about your own life for a second, all of us, and ask yourself the question.
I mean, Spanish is easy.
Where do I stand in this triangle? Somebody's not on mute. Where do I stand in this triangle? How is my relationship to myself? Meaning, am I growing? Am I doing anything in my own learning that's helping me grow? Am I learning Torah? Where's my relationship to God? And where's my relationship to others? And where do I stand in this triangle? And it's something you kind of ask yourself on a constant basis, and then you kind of attenuate it. Like, you know what? I've kind of let my own self-growth go. I needed to grow this year, take care of myself. I need to develop myself more because I'll be able to give so much more to others. Or I need to pull back a little bit from, do some chesed, not just do the learning. Does that make sense? Are there any questions? You guys have been such a fantastic audience. You just must be enraptured by my teaching. Okay, so that is the reason. So just to review, what Shimon Sadik is teaching us is that the world stands, your life, the entire world stands on relationships. And we're meant to be balanced in these 3 points. And I want to say one more thing about this, which is that you will see that there's a pattern in Torah, in all of Judaism, and the pattern always comes in threes. Always comes in threes. And this is another example. You can say the patriarchs, Avram, Yitzhak, Yaakov, you can just see it all over the place. This pattern comes in threes. And this is another example of that pattern of coming in 3. And so they say, the Talmud says, Chuta meshulash lo meher lenatek, a twine of 3 will not break. And they also say the strongest table is not 4-legged, but 3-legged. In other words, the stability of that, of being in the center, creates an incredibly fulfilling and stable life. So thank you so much for being here. I want to say again, what a honor it is to teach this Mishna in Azrael ben David's Zechut. For those of you who got to meet him, I think he really was this balance, and he was a man of started with his own family, a deeply spiritual man, and of course, his acts of loving kindness are legendary. But we're all blessed to have someone like that who is in this generation that we can learn from and look as an inspiration. I can say just personally, I'll just say that getting to know him, and I was really struck by that. I was struck by his unbelievable humility. Somebody who is, this powerful person, so to speak, just very down to earth and humble, and knew himself, and yet deeply cared about other people and taking care of the Jewish people in Israel. And it's just really inspirational for me as a person to be around someone like that. So I thank you all. For those in South Africa, stay safe, and thank you for being this beautiful Jewish community that you are. And may we have a very quick recovery from COVID, and let it be over soon, God willing. And let's continue to learn together. Thank you, and have a great evening.
Thank you so much. Thank you very, very much. Thanks for your time.
You're welcome.
Thank you. That was outstanding.
Oh,
Bye.
my pleasure. Really my pleasure.